Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Akil bin Zaini.
My name is Nur Sahira binti Ramli.
My name is Nur Maidia binti Muhammad Yusuf.
And my name is Nurdana Afika binti Muhammad Nazri. We are from class BA 2435B and this is our group presentation for research project MGT 648.
So, next we go to the problem statements. Nowadays, many people benefited from a technological advancement, especially in smartphone usage. It is because practically all work, including university learning session, is done on smartphones. People in the Y generation are those who use smartphones frequently in their daily life. They communicated and multitask using smartphone. They are nevertheless more exposed to addictions. In the fields of education, particularly among university students, the subject of technology addiction has been given significant attention. This influence has both a positive and bad impacts on student academic performance. They frequently fall asleep with applications that cause them to be careless in pursuing knowledge, such as Mobile Legends and the PUBG game as an example of negative consequences. For the positive impacts is smartphone also will encourage collaborative and diverse forms of learning through internet connection. Higher education institutions will be benefit from the use of smartphone in the learning process since they utilize smartphone as communication device, and it will inspire students to be more engaged in the learning session while in the classroom. This article investigates the impacts of a smartphone use on a student academic achievement. In particular, the aim of this finding is to reveal that student academic performance is influenced by usage of smartphones and time consuming on smartphones. Okay, next we go to the RO and the RQ. For the first research objective is to examine the level of time consumed on smartphone with student academic performance. Second is to identify the characteristic of a student based on the measure of a smartphone's usage towards their academic performance. For the research question is, first, what is the level of time consumed on smartphone with a student academic performance? Second question is, what are the characteristics of a student based on the measure of smartphone usage towards their academic performance? Next, we go to conceptual frameworks. In the conceptual framework, have a two variable which is independent variables and also dependent variables. For the independent variable, have two independent variables which is time consuming and smartphones. For the dependent variable, have one dependent variable which is academic performance. Why choose time consuming and smartphone usage as an independent variables? It is because these two factors have a big potentials that influence student academic performance.
Next, we proceed with Chapter 3, which is Methodology. First, Research Design. In this study, we were using descriptive research to describe the characteristic of a population. It is really important for us to have a proper understanding of what a research problem is about before investigating why it exists in the first place. Next, for type of investigation, this research study was using causal relationship, which is to indicate one concept or variable can causes a movement to other variable. We have more than one IV for this study. For instance, for our research, time consuming and smartphone usage act as a variable which is to observe cause and effect on the student academic performance. Furthermore, for extent of research interference, we were using minimal interference where we need to simply develop theoretical framework, collect the relevant data and analyze. Moreover, for study setting, we apply non-contrive because we only examine natural setting in which daily activities go on as normal with minimal research. As for unit analysis, we use individuals. Time horizon used in this research study is cross-sectional design because we only distribute to the respondent only one time attempt. Secondly, in this research, we use probability sampling or popularly known as simple random sampling as method. We use this method because it has equal chance being selected as a subject for the respondents. Next is data collection. Data that we use in this research study is primary data. We are using questionnaire as a tool during conducted this survey. Data was collected from Human Resources Management student Part 5 from UiTM Cawangan Melaka campus Bandaraya Melaka. The questionnaire was distributed personally to our targeted respondent based on selected population.
We move on to Chapter 4 in Findings and Discussions. We use SPSS statistics to get our data. Here are the results. Demographic frequency for respondent profiles from question 1 to 3. In gender, more than half of the survey respondents are from the female population, 81.4%, and male population are 18.6%. Next is age. Students who are 21 to 23 years old are 82.9% and 24 to 26 are 17.1%. This shows mostly the respondents are within 21 to 23 years old. Next is class. Those respondents of this survey mostly who are from class BA2435A 35.7%, BA2435B 25.7%, followed by BA2435C 28.6%. Next, the result for question 4 and 5. In question 4, we can see that iOS is the greatest proportion of operating system with 54.3% compared to Android and others. Following question 5, the result of demographic frequency of internet, Wi-Fi and mobile data are the most usage among students with 68.6% compared to Wi-Fi and mobile data only. Lastly, the outcome demonstrates the demographic frequency of internet problems. Most of the respondents agree locations are the major causes of problems that they face to get internet with the result 31.4%. Next, interpretation of descriptive analysis independent variable. It consists of two different independent variables which are time consuming and smartphone usage. First, descriptive analysis of time consuming. From the findings, we can conclude that all respondents mostly agree with all the questions, but they highly agree on question 2 and question 5, which 4.21 respectively and consider as the highest mean. Next, the respondents show the lowest mean on question 4, which is 3.41 compared to other questions. For standard deviation, we can conclude that question 2 has the lowest score for standard deviation, which is 0.883 or 21%. On either side, question 4 considered as the highest score, which is 1.136 or 33.31%. Secondly, descriptive analysis for second independent variables, smartphone usage. Overall, we can conclude that 70 of the respondents agree with all the questions in this section. Mostly, they agree with all the questions, but the most is on question 3 due to the highest mean score, 4.36. Next, question 2 considered as the lowest mean score among other questions, which is 4.10. For standard deviation, we can conclude that question 1 got the highest score with 1.040 or 25.12%. Next, question 5 can be considered as the lowest score because the result shows 0.846 or 19.85 compared to others. Next, we proceed with descriptive analysis dependent variable. From this table shows 5 number of questions that are related to our dependent variable, which is academic performance. From the findings, we can conclude that the highest mean score for this section is 4.13, which close to 5.00 represents question 3. Moreover, question 2 show the lowest result compared to others with score 3.56. For standard deviation, the highest score of standard deviation is question 2 with 0.958 or 26.91% compared to others. Meanwhile, question 1 got the lowest score with 22.47% or 0.856. We move on to reliability statistics for independent variable of time consuming. The score of Cronbach alpha is 0.681. This shows the internal consistency of the total score is questionable, which is between 0.7 to 0.6. Next, the reliability statistics for independent variable or smartphone usage. The score of Chromebook Alpha is 0.883. This shows the internal consistency of the total score is good, which is between 0.9 to 0.8. Lastly, the reliability statistics for dependent variable of academic performance. The score of Chromebook Alpha is 0.886. This shows the internal consistency of the total score is good, which is between 0.9 to 0.8. Next, we proceed with the level of mean for independent variable. From these findings, show the level of overall mean between two different IVs, time consuming and smartphone usage. We can see from the calculation that both independent variables are in high range, which 3.68 to 5.00. Overall, we can conclude that smartphone usage have a high score of mean 4.234 compared to time consuming 3.964, where it is perceived as the lowest mean score.
As the results from the findings, a few recommendations have been made into consideration. Section A is about demographic profile, where there are 6 questions in total. For question 5, list students agree that they are using Wi-Fi only for their smartphone. During this online distance learning, most lecturers will use video calls such as Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and Webex as a medium for learning. It is recommended for lecturers to use other platforms for learning. For example, give a video learning for students for them to download and for them to learn by themselves, or give them an exercise or a work for them to do. This will help the students in their academic learning and not to miss any online classes when they are in a place that does not have a Wi-Fi connection. Next, the government also needs to be involved in this problem by strengthening and stabilizing the internet connections in this country. Most of the developing countries already do this to help their people with technology. The government also needs to follow this step for the good of the people. Then, in section B, there are 5 questions about time consuming. Students list agree that they are using their smartphone for more than 5 hours per day for chatting. During this online distance learning, instead of focusing on PowerPoint, Google Meet, and YouFuture as learning platforms, lecturers can widen it by sharing their learning materials and discussing their learning using WhatsApp or Telegram groups. It is recommended that lecturers use this medium to communicate with students more. Next, in section C, there are 5 questions about smartphone usage. Students are using the smartphone to schedule their lecture activities with reminders. Lecturers should encourage the students to use their smartphone as a reminder for their schedule of their lecture activities. They can encourage their students by asking them to use an app as a reminder for their class schedule, assignment submissions, and the date of the test and exam of their subject. This also can help students to stay alert with their schedule and manage their time so they will not miss any of their learning activities, especially during this online distance learning. Lastly, in section D, there are 5 questions about academic performance. Most of the students at least agree that using a smartphone can improve their performance in study. This should make the lecturer better understanding on how to use the online learning platform. Lecturers should look into and observe more on which online platforms are easy and helpful for students to join. Besides that, lecturers should provide a guidance on how to utilize smartphones, particularly for information, in order to make the most of their potential as a learning process. For example, since most students use their smartphones for entertainment, the lecturer should take this as an advantage. Lecturers can share a YouTube video with their students that are related to their learning. This can make students find something that is more useful for them to learn with their YouTube apps. In addition, students will realize that by using a smartphone, they also can increase their academic performance. In conclusion, these studies have provided some insight for higher education institutions and researchers in better understanding the pattern of smartphone use among university students. Hopefully, these findings will assist them in addressing students' disruptive smartphone addiction behavior. However, there are some limitations to this study that need to be addressed in the future study. The first limitation arises from the study's limited sample size. As a result, a future study could include more university and a larger sample size. Next, there are limitations in the data collection where we only use Google Form to collect the data. Hence, the future study should implement behavioral research to understand more about the way students use their smartphones in academic learning. This generation of university students' usage of smartphone is unquestionably unquestionably ingrained in their culture. They utilize them in class as well as when doing homework and learning. It is essential to gain a deeper understanding of the mechanism that underlie this behavior to increase learning effectiveness.
That's all from us. Thank you.